Hi, welcome to my video blog. Today I want to talk about God concept. I work with a lot of people in 12-step programs who have real trouble with this idea for a number of various reasons. I think the people who have the easiest time with the God concept are more committed Christians who believe that God is like a guy who is out there who's watching over us. They generally have no trouble with the concept. It's easy for them to turn their will and their life over to that concept. But there are a whole bunch of other people that I work with where that doesn't work for them because they don't believe in that kind of a concept of a separate being who is overseeing everything. So what do you do with that? There are many ways of thinking about the concept of God, and a helpful way of thinking about it in my mind is to think in terms of metaphor. That, humans tend to be very literal. They think in very concrete terms, and I encourage people to think in terms of metaphor. In fact, I think this life that we're here in now is a metaphor based on what we're learning in new physics. I'm sitting on a chair that has wooden arms here, and these arms, you can probably hear me tapping on them, they feel solid to me, but when you look at this material from the point of view of its molecular and atomic structure, we find out something completely different. This armchair that I'm resting my elbows on is really more space than anything else. So, I think it's important to think about what is reality. Just because it comes out of our mind, does that mean it's real? Not necessarily. And so let's talk about the spectrum of belief. On the one spectrum, you have the committed Christian who believes in the God as a being. As you move further toward the middle, and this would be evidenced in churches that are more metaphysical in nature, like Unity Church or Church of Religious Science, or even Christian Science. The idea of a God as separate is removed, and people begin to think in terms of God being a part of me, that I am a co-creator with God, and that I'm sort of in partnership. And this was the religion I subscribed to before I became a Buddhist, and I had a little bit of trouble with it, because I still kept thinking about, well, what is God? If I'm a co-creator with God, is God any different than me? And I started getting confused about it. So, and then on the far other end of the spectrum are the atheists. And interestingly, Buddhism is basically an atheistic religion. Buddhism doesn't believe there is a God. Buddhism believes in deities, and deities are concepts. They're metaphoric concepts. So, for instance, Red Tara is a deity. We consider her a Buddha, and she represents ripening and energizing. And there's another word I'm trying to think of, but I can't think of it now. And there are other Buddhas that represent different concepts. So when you're contemplating Tara, you're contemplating magnetizing, bringing to fruition, ripening. So it's a concept that you're contemplating rather than somebody that has any kind of control over you. And so when we, in the program, third step says, became willing to turn our will and our lives over to God as we understand God. A lot of people have trouble with the third step, which gets them into trouble with staying sober, because they don't know what they're turning their life over to. And one thing that's more important than anything is you cannot turn your life over to something you do not trust, let alone understand. Because why would you give yourself over to something you have either no faith in or no trust in? So it's real important to work on your own God's concept. And when I work with people, I don't try to sway them in any way in terms of which way to go in terms of their God concept. I try to help them figure out for themselves what concept works for them so that they can trust. So when I turn my will in my life over, I'm turning my will over to absolute enlightenment, to what in Buddhism we call emptiness, to anything other than myself, because I know that when I run my own life without the concept of humility and compassion, I'm in big trouble. So God is a concept, and if you can turn your will and your life over to brilliance or group of drunks or whatever works for you, then you can move on and kind of get the first 3 steps down, and then move on with the rest of your program. Of course, always renewing those first 3 steps every day. I'm a really strong believer in discipline. And the more discipline we have, and for me, it's thinking in terms of how committed I am towards being compassionate and being of service to others. And more than that, doing mantra as a Buddhist, and also doing my practice, which I've been really bad about lately for various reasons, and forgiving myself for that. And that allows me to stay clean and sober. But if we're confused in this area and we have no commitment to ourselves, that's why it's always recommended in meetings to read the daily readings. It's just a sort of a reminder of what you want to think about for the day. And it's helpful. It kind of gets the day started off on the right note, because we're programming ourselves. And so much of our thought really needs to be programmed, bridled, cleansed, and that takes discipline, work, and commitment. So I hope you enjoyed my first blog video. Come back and join me on my show on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time. On that show, you'll get a chance to interact with me, ask questions, and I've just figured out a way to put you on the phone with me. So if you want to have a conversation for others to hear, you're welcome to do that. Look forward to hearing from you. Bye.